Now, the two candidates fighting for the French presidency have launched bitter attacks on each other in a final bid to win over millions of undecided voters before Sunday's election. Centrist Emmanuel Macron is aiming to become the first sitting president to win a second term for 20 years. He said that Marine Le Pen's far right was fueled by unhappiness and risk of society of hate and fracture. It was proof of his weakness. She said that he used old insults of extremism. The opinion polls give the sitting president the edge in the second round runoff, but Ms. Le Pen's far-right party has never been this close to power, which is why the stakes are so high. Well, let's bring you back to Africa, where President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced that the country's former president, Mwai Kibaki, has died at the age of 90. His 2002 election ended 40 years of one-party rule since independence. However, his 2007 re-election sparked months of nationwide violence that led to 1,200 deaths. President Kenyatta, defeated by Mr. Kibaki in 2002, led the tribute to his former rival, saying he had led the charge to keep the ruling party accountable. Mr. Kibaki had earned the abiding respect and affection of this nation. The president said this while he went on a courtesy visit. Mr. Kenyatta declared a mourning period until Mr. Kibaki's burial, with flags flying at half-mast. It will be given a state funeral with full military honors. For joining me to discuss the legacy of the former Kenyan president is African Affairs Analyst Ademola Oshodi. Of course, it's good to have you join us on The World Now. Before we talk about the disappointment some persons feel when they hear the name Mwai Kibaki, help us understand the legacy of a man who rose from being an economist to one of the greatest oppositions in Kenya politics.
Yes, indeed. He was a great politician, achieved a lot for Kenya. He was known to be a great economist. Been in the Ministry of Finance for many, many years, while in government as a minister and then vice president. He was always in some economic planning commission for the Kenyan government at one stage or the other, until he became president in 2007. So it's a very brilliant economist, and he's attributed to have really helped the Kenyan economy while he was president. GDP rose dramatically. Kenya's commodities, especially things like coffee, wheat, and other products grew rapidly during his tenure. There was a lot of economic stability. So that's a great legacy for him.
Of course, indeed. Some persons will look at some of his policies, from education to his economic policies to a splash of, fresh governance in Kenya politics. But how much of his policies still hold water or still make sense, if I would say, in today's Kenya?
Well, I believe it's given them a very stable, or I would say a very historical place to work the economy from, a historical base. Commodity has been a major part of Kenyan economy, in addition to tourism, in addition to trade. They bring in a lot of trade through their ports for landlocked countries in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and the rest of them. So Kenyan economy has been stable, starting from him. I should say. Of course, with the issues of COVID and crisis around the Somalian area, especially Kenya's intervention in Somalia, caused a little bit of disruption with terrorist attacks in Kenyan malls. But definitely, Kibaki's legacy has really stood the test of time. The most important legacy, obviously, has been the fact that its embrace of the opposition. Has been an opposition champion himself for many, many years, and creating his own party, as you said, has left a situation whereby opposition powers in Kenya have the gusto, the boldness to challenge the sitting government, and maybe even win government. So his legacy is good. We can also talk about the bad parts of him, the 2007 election and the massacre of people that came to demonstrate against a very flawed election, I could say.
I was going to
people. Yeah.
I was going to say we should talk about, of course, the disappointment some persons say they feel and the complicated legacy he left behind when he stepped down after his second presidential term in 2013. What would you say, went wrong for Kibaki while he was in government?
There was not much beyond corruption. It's the bad thing of African politics, I should say. Corruption was very widespread during his government, but at the same time, he did grow the economy. They brought stability, and he did help the judiciary, the court system, holding people account. But at the same breath, people were stealing a lot of Kenyan money. So he was known to be a very easy politician. He wasn't a confrontational person. I think there was a quote that said that he never found a fence he could sit on. So he never took sides. He was not ready to challenge anybody or any institution, but he just built on whatever he saw. So based on that soft-hearted, non-confrontational personality he had, things in many places got out of hand, especially corruption. But overall, his legacy for the economy of Kenya has been probably one of the lasting benefits of his presidency. The death of thousands of people during that election itself is a scarred things. The international community was very, very hard on Kenya moving forward. But history has been quite kind to him, especially if he lived till 90. History tends to find a way of looking at the good points and healing wounds have been healed, so to speak.
Of course, the president had described him as the gentleman of Kenyan politics. Ademola Oshodi, thank you so much for joining us to discuss the legacy of the former Kenyan president. It's good to have you join us on the news at this time.
Thank you.